Mr. Chairman. My Lord Mayor, Lady Mayoress, I'll welcome you as well. Honoured guests, ladies and gentlemen. Lenin. My first day on this earth coincided with the first day of Operation Market Garden. Blank faces all around. The older members might know that was Arnhem Day. And it was perhaps the beginning of one of the blackest days in British military history. We did badly in on those days. I imagine that at home, I caused some disruption as well. Perhaps not quite as much as the Germans did. Anyway, as childhoods go, I suppose mine was normal for someone who lived in an area that was bombed frequently, but also in an area of rather scenic beauty. And after the war ended, a life full of adventure beckoned. Exploring areas of wildlife, being stung by nettles, falling off walls and out of trees, and picking and sampling wild blackberries. Learning to ride a bicycle was truly liberating, in that I could explore far further out. The same kind of adventures, but in different places. Living within walking distance of the seaside and a short bus ride from an area of outstanding natural beauty did tend to colour summer breaks. Boredom was not an option. It seemed to me that the sun always shone, and life was good, if musical. My local grammar school seemed to have a good educational reputation, but I'll leave you to judge that, because our two famous old boys were Sir Harry Seacombe, the Goon, and Dr. Rowan Williams, the current Archbishop of Canterbury. It was a good school, I promise you. Harry Seacombe was older than me, and Rowan Williams was considerably younger than me. Incredulity.
We know.
My two early hobbies were singing, the choral variety, not solo, and of course, being Welsh, rugby. The former, we were thrown into the former a few days after joining school, and every day then, well not every week then, for months to come, Mother was standing at the door waiting to see what turned up, covered in mud, or even worse, covered in blood. It was quite a good learning experience. She was rather anxious, and I said, well, don't worry, the mud will wash off. The showers weren't working. And the blood, yes, that will go away with it. You know, time. Well, the bloodshed was soon sorted. You avoid the injuries. The mud, I'm afraid, playing rugby in South Wales, one of the wettest areas in the country, on muddy grass. 30 young lads with an oval-shaped ball and half an hour to play with it. You inevitably end up in a pile of seething human flesh. And typically I was at the bottom of it. And that really is where my life education started. The hand that pulled you out of the mud, what belonged to your friend. The boot that was pushing you into it, you tried to avoid. Well, Wales is also quite well known for singing. And while I was still at school, I joined a local choir, male voice choir, and it was natural to try that kind of a discipline. And at last I found a pastime that didn't involve mud, water, being cold, and leaking blood. But, once again, teamwork was essential. Particularly during practice for singing competitions. I Stead Rodai, Jason, he knows what it means. The social side made up for any discomfort, and it was thoroughly enjoyable, as it was with the rugby side. But then, of course, all good things had to come to an end, and I left school. And after many years of training, I became a chemist, which was good fun. I thought, my future is sorted. I am going to be well educated, well prepared, well paid for the rest of my life. Ha, ha. Along the way, I picked up a wife. and after a few job moves, we landed in York, having also picked up a daughter en route. And that's really two of my life-changing experiences. Because after being a guest at a local wedding, some of you perhaps were there, Mr. Parkinson's wedding, I was invited afterwards to join this club. And I came along with Brian Parkinson to this room for my first ever meeting of the club. And I tell you, I was terrified. This is fairly intimidating now, but all along both walls were pictures of the former chairman of the North Eastern Railway Company in the North Eastern region. And they were all evaluating me. They were all staring at me, telling me, get better. But at the end of the meeting, I tried a topic, a 2-minute topic, and lasted about 30 seconds. Thanks, John. John was the topics chairman that night. I tried to talk about the Grand National and failed. Well, since that time, I think I've gained a little bit in confidence. I hope I've become a slightly better speaker. At least now, I'm no longer terrified to stand up and speak in public or in private. And along the way, I've had the privilege of listening to very, very many fine public speakers, some of whom are still members of this club. My daughter's flown the nest. I've nearly retired, but I agree with all the oldies I've ever consulted. When you retire, you have less time, not more. Well, I think that's because your time is spent doing things that you choose to do, and you choose to do them more slowly. There isn't any rush. And so now I'm looking forward to a good long future, whatever that might throw at me. And I'm looking forward to making perhaps 1 or 2 more speeches, assuming I get past this B1, and I might move on to B2. But the title of this speech, just in case you haven't remembered, Arnhem Day was the 17th of September 1944, work it out and quite old. And when I first started in this club, we didn't have a speaker's guide, we had a speaker's manual. And the first speech was conveniently named after Lenin, which, as you all know, was the world's first nuclear-powered icebreaker.